This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My email address, xzone@talkstarradio.com, on MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and xzonetv.com. My guest this hour is Bishop James Long. He studied for the Roman Catholic priesthood for more than 6 years. During his years in the seminary, Bishop Long received solid academic and spiritual formation. Through prayer and spiritual advisement, Bishop Long accepted God's call to become an independent Catholic priest. He was ordained a deacon, priest, and was consecrated a bishop with the Old Catholic Church. Bishop Long has always known that he had a calling to serve in the priesthood. He can remember a burning desire to become a priest when he was just 5 years old, and that desire has never left him. Now, by the age of 9, Bishop Long was also called to study demonology and began absorbing anything he could get his hands on pertaining to demonology. While attending the seminary, the bishop was able to study the subject in more depth and was mentored by a properly ordained and experienced exorcist. Bishop Long is the author of the book called Through the Eyes of an Exorcist. He's also the founder of the Paranormal Clergy Institute. The institute was specifically created for paranormal groups to help find when dealing with demonic entities. The bishop has performed over 23 documented exorcisms, and his desire to teach people about demonology continues as his ministry grows. Currently, the bishop serves as the presiding archbishop for the United States Old Catholic Church, where he teaches demonology classes and hosts a weekly radio show on Para-X Radio Network called The Sacred Division. Bishop Long, welcome to the X-Zone. How are you, Bishop?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate that.
It's great having you with us tonight. When you received your calling into the priesthood, did you ever imagine at that young age of 5 years old that you would be facing evil on such a one-to-one basis?
No, actually, when I absolutely knew that even at age 5. I mean, I knew that I wanted to be a priest. Mm-hmm. I remember being in kindergarten, and we were in school, and it was a Catholic school, and we were at church, and I went home, and my mom asked me what we did for school, and I told her, and that we were talking about career day, and she said, "Well, what did you tell the teacher?" And I said, I pointed at the priest, and I said, "I want to do what he does." So even at a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be a priest. Now, I didn't understand that at that time. I just knew that that's really what I wanted to do.
Bishop, you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to give us a call and ask the bishop questions pertaining to exorcism, please. The lines are open at 1-877-528-8255. That is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. at 1-877-528-8255. Still to come on tonight's show, J. Allen Danilick will be joining me in hour number 3. We're going to be talking about UFOs and aliens. And in the final hour of tonight's show, Sue Storm, the Angel Lady, will be doing angel readings for everyone here in the X Zone Nation while she's on for the final hour of tonight's show. Once again, our toll-free number is 1-877-528-8255. Bishop Long is our special guest. His website is www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com. And I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the Bishop as the X Zone continues, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best.
Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, or psychic phenomenon? Join me, Tim Bartley, co-host of Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, coming mid-January 2017 to the XZBN. We will channel spirits live and talk to them, revealing all kinds of amazing information. Spiritual attachments will be found and removed on the show, and so much more. To find out when you can listen to Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, visit www.xzbn.net for listeners on both sides of the veil.
Bishop Long is our special guest this hour, Exonation. And Bishop, can you tell us the difference between the Old Catholic Church and the Roman Catholic Church?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the Old Catholic Church branched from the Roman Catholic Church officially in the 1890s, but the process began in the 1870s over papal infallibility. So there was just a belief that cardinals and even bishops at the time in the Roman Catholic Church didn't see the Pope as infallible. And so there was a split amongst other issues as well. Now, the Old Catholic Church is different in that each jurisdiction is independent. So each bishop has their own jurisdiction. And you have some extreme conservative Old Catholics, and you have extreme liberal Old Catholics. And so with the United States Old Catholic Church, we're different in that our ministry is primarily funded by priests who have secular positions. And we allow priests to get married. Our priests can, of course, they have secular positions as well. They can be partnered. We're just a very inclusive church community. We ordain women as well.
Can you explain a little bit more about your calling to the priesthood as well as your calling to the demonology field?
Well, the calling to the priesthood, as I stated, started when I was 5. There's no question in my mind I wanted to be a priest. I mean, when I grew up, I had no interest in any other field besides the priesthood. So I knew at a very early age that that's what I wanted to do, and that desire has never fizzled. If anything, it's increased. Now, as far as the demonology field, it wasn't enough for me. Even I remember at age 8, it wasn't enough to have that calling for the priesthood. I also felt that I needed to know the opposite. And I felt like that was a calling. And I think this is very important. When I talk about demonology is a calling. It is a ministry. It's something that one does because they're called to that ministry. And I feel that I was called to serve as a demonologist, and then, of course, as my role as an exorcist with the United States Old Catholic Church.
What was it like the first time you faced a demon?
It was it was frightening, and I think probably the worst case situation was a diabolical possession. You truly see, the best way to describe it is every fear, every anxiety, every feeling of loneliness, depression, almost sometimes can overwhelm you. That's a state of oppression, and it's quite powerful. And so you always have to respect the dangers that come with possession. And that's why I always teach people about demonology, because so many people want to be demonologists and exorcists, and I just inform them that you have to respect the dangers that come with the territory.
What would some of the dangers be, sir?
Possession. But even a possession of the exorcist, or those people who are actually praying with the exorcist assisting. But even more so than that is the death of the person who is possessed. The ultimate goal for any person who is possessed, or the demonic wants to destroy the intellect and the will. And it continues to destroy the intellect and the will of not only the person possessed, but also of all family members surrounding the loved one. So it isolates that person to the point where the person is hearing voices, the person is clearly seeing things, and it attacks them on a psychological, sexual, spiritual, in many different physical ways, and to the point where it destroys the intellect and will. That's, of course, when you have possession. And the ultimate goal is for the person to commit suicide. Now, from a theological point of view, I don't believe that people who commit suicide go to hell. I firmly reject that doctrine, only because the person who commits suicide is not in the right state of mind. Mm-hmm. And I don't think an all-loving God would condemn one of his children to hell because they acted out in a way in which they weren't in full capacity. And that's really important for me to tell people that, because I've had people come to me and cry, and they wish they had some minister tell them that they believe that their loved one is in heaven, even if they committed suicide. And I firmly believe that they are.
When you're dealing with an exorcism, is it like we see on TV where there's this cold air, that there's a stench in the air, and that there is levitation, as well as strange disfiguration of the person who is possessed?
Yes, the things that you mentioned, absolutely. Now, levitation doesn't always occur. When you mention foul odors, that is a state of oppression. There are 3 stages of possession: infestation, oppression, possession. Within those stages, you also have elements. You have levels of infestation, levels of oppression, and levels of possession. And so the foul stench you're talking about is an odor that is so repulsive that it continues to destroy the intellect and will. Yes, the disfiguration of the person, of the body, does occur. Mm-hmm. The speaking in dead languages does occur. Not only that, but the demonic will actually know whatever sins that you've committed. And so that's why it's very important that an exorcist and all those people surrounding or assisting the exorcist must go through confession. Because if not, then your deepest, darkest secret, the thing that you want no one to know, the demonic will actually let people know. Only for the reason of stopping the exorcism. So those things can occur along with other acts as well.
How would one become possessed?
For many reasons. One could be dabbling in black magic, black art. I think it's important for that people know, from my personal philosophical, theological explanation, I have great friends who are witches. I have great friends who are pagans, who are atheists, and I love them dearly. And people who practice black magic, black art, curses, Santeria, those folks are absolutely opening the door to possibly having attachments and therefore infestation, oppression, of course, and possession. So there are ways of, if you're practicing black art, black magic, doing curses, Ouija boards, again, I tell people stay away from the Ouija boards, only because the Ouija board in of itself is nothing magical. But the problem is there's no filter. You can't filter out the good from the evil. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you could be communicating with someone you think is a deceased loved one when in fact you're speaking to a demonic. So by opening yourself up, you can in fact receive attachments and possession.
Where do these demons reside, Bishop?
They reside actually in the presence, a different level, is a different realm of existence than what we know. It's a spiritual realm. And I think that's what people need to understand. When a demonic attaches themselves to you, people always think of a physical battle, and it's really not. The consequences of that possession is physical. In other words, and I can't go into great detail because obviously there are some things that shouldn't be discussed, but when a demonic attacks you on a physical level, the scars, etc., there are, you clearly, there's a difference between self-inflicted scars and one that actually has been committed by demonic, versus, or even an incubus and succubus. An incubus and succubus, when they attack their victim, they're manipulating the body. They're manipulating the muscles. So they exist, obviously, in a different level, a different reality in which we do. When we pass away, I believe, we will then be on that same level, or that same playing field, if you want to call that. But they certainly reside around us. They're fully aware that we are present. Many people are not fully aware that they are.
How long does the normal exorcism, an average exorcism, take?
You know, that's a great question, and honestly, it could be hours, it could be days, it could be months. It really just depends on the particular case. When you're dealing with a diabolical possession, that's different than a demonic. When you have a demonic possession, you're usually talking about one demonic entity that has attached themselves to that person, and possession then occurs. When you're dealing with diabolical, you're dealing with multiple. When you have multiple possession, that's when obviously we're getting to the extreme level of exorcism, the solemn ritual. The solemn ritual is performed even on a demonic or diabolical. When you're dealing with a diabolical, the main concern is for the person not obviously hurting themselves. And that's very, very important, because that's usually one of the first very serious issues, is the person will attack themselves. Or actually the demonic is controlling their body. It's important to note that when a person is possessed, the number one reason for death is malnutrition, dehydration. And because the demonic will not allow the person to consume any food, any water. And if you do, even a little drop would cause them to become violently ill. So you have to be careful about how you approach that.
How do you prepare yourself for an exorcism if they can be so strenuous and so long and so physically and mentally challenging?
That's a great question. And of course, there's fasting, there's prayer, there's spending time in what Catholics call Eucharistic adoration, spending time with the Eucharist, and just remembering it's very important. One of the most important things I think as an exorcist is it's very important to remember to check the ego. When I was working in an incubus case, that's a demonic entity that attacks it's the person on a sexual level. I got very furious because I worked with this woman, and she was a 68-year-old woman. She reminded me of her grandmother. She was the sweetest woman I've ever met in my life, and it kept attacking her. And it points to when I got involved with the case, she was on life support, and I did the exorcisms. I got furious, and she was getting better, but not to the point that I thought she would. And I got so angry. I went to my mentor. I said, "Look, I am doing this. I am doing that," and my mentor said, "Stop. You're doing nothing. You are an instrument in which God is using." And I think that's the number one thing that exorcists should remember, is always remember to check the ego, and you have to be very respectful of the ritual.
Bishop, please stand by. We have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Bishop James Long is our special guest, Exo Nation. And if you'd like to find out more about the bishop, his website is www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com. Bishop James Long and I will be back on the other side of the news as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network. Still to come on tonight's show, Jeff Danlick and I will be discussing UFOs, and in the final hour of tonight's show, the Angel Lady will be doing angel readings for one and all who give a call to 1-877-528-8255. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone, and we're live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network. Bishop James Long is my very special guest this hour. And Bishop Long's website is www.paranormalclergy.com. Bishop, you're the author of Through the Eyes of an Exorcist. Can you tell us a bit about your book and why you chose to write it?
Sure. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Well, Through the Eyes of an Exorcist was written primarily to educate paranormal groups and those people who may not be in the paranormal about, of course, human spirits, poltergeists, elementals, and, of course, demonic entities. I think it's very important for information to actually get out into the field of not just book smart, but also field experience. I've read so many books where from people who say that they're so experienced in demonology, but they only have the book smarts. And it was important for me to express what I've actually experienced in the field as well. My passion is to educate people, and or to help people, obviously being in ministry. And so any way that I can do that, I strive, whether it be through lectures at conferences or phone calls or visiting people or blessing homes, whatever it takes to help people.
How dangerous is it for a member of a paranormal group who does not have the training or the experience that you have to try and exorcise a person or even bless a house where there's the possibility of demonic possession?
Rob, I want to thank you for asking that question. I really do. That's one of the biggest concerns that I have as a demonologist, as an exorcist, is looking at so many websites and hearing so many groups going out into fields or to demonic cases, performing these blessings that they think that they can handle, and then of course I'm getting phone calls in the middle of the night when now someone has gone under transient possession. This is very, very dangerous, and unless someone is properly trained, they should absolutely stay away from this. We're talking about, this is a real ministry, but let's forget about all the theological arguments. Let's just look at the legal arguments for alone. There are so many legal issues in dealing with an exorcism that unless they're not properly trained, they should definitely stay away from. For example, restraining people. You can't restrain anyone without their permission. Now, that alone can get you into prison. But let's say you're dealing with somebody who has a mental issue and not a real possession case. Well, the problem is if you have them sign a waiver and they're schizophrenic, well, that's not going to help you in the court of law because they're not in the right state of mind. And the exorcist should have done the homework. Before I would ever perform an exorcism on anybody, there is extensive background check on this individual. There's a psychological evaluation that must be performed. There is a spiritual evaluation. There is a physical evaluation performed by the doctor. I have to speak to these doctors, and I would never perform an exorcism on anyone, without that information. This is something that is so dangerous that a person could literally expire during a possession. And I think people watch it on TV or they read it on maybe in movies or books or whatever, and they think it's fun. And living in an oppressed state for the rest of your life is not fun. And there's a lot of dangers that come with this, and I tell people, unless you're really prepared to live in a state of oppression for the rest of your life, stay away from it.
Bishop, you've performed 23 documented exorcisms. What would you say was the worst case that you did?
Diabolical, the 17th case. And I know it. It was a diabolical possession. She was a young girl, and it was a terrible case of a true diabolical possession. When I was not the exorcist, I was the assistant. And the thing is there's always an assistant for a variety of reasons. Obviously, if the exorcist is attacked, possessed, etc., or just physically attacked, heart attack, stroke, that exorcist has to be removed, and the ritual continues. The worst case was definitely the diabolical. The thing is she was becoming dehydrated. We gave her a little sip of water, and she became violently ill. And she sounded like she was choking. And as I was reaching down, trying to move her from choking on what I thought was vomit, her eyes, she closed her eyes and she opened, and there was nothing. It was solid black. It was a blackness where it almost looked like a mirror. And I saw my reflection, and there was no whites. It was solid black. That's full possession. And I couldn't stand. I couldn't move. Every fear, it was one of the most horrific experiences I've ever had in my life. And thank God I had my mentor there to pull me to the side and offer the blessing. He did a ritual, and we moved on. But at that point in time, if I had not had an exorcist there, I could have easily gone under possession. I think people need to be aware that possession does exist, no question. And it's rare, but it does exist. There's a difference between the minor rite of exorcism and the solemn ritual. A minor rite of exorcism can be performed by the laity, which is a cleansing of the house of human spirits and even demonic, but I tell people to stay away from that. But a solemn ritual is performed on someone who is actually possessed. That should only be performed only by an exorcist.
How do you know if someone is truly possessed versus someone who may be dealing with mental issues?
Great question. And the psychological evaluation will obviously help a great deal. Obviously, then speaking to their psychiatrist and ruling out any possibility of any type of mental issues, that's number one. But people need to be fully aware that a person who is psychologically ill cannot recite the Aramaic, Our Father in Aramaic backwards. A person who is mentally ill cannot levitate. A person who is mentally ill is not able to tell you your deepest sins or your deepest secrets that you're the most embarrassed by. So mentally ill people are not capable of doing that. But even more so, once the team has already done the investigation and it's clear that we have a possession case, when I get involved in that case, there are things that I do even after we have all the reports. I still do things that no one has any clue what I'm doing. Nobody. But the possessed will. Now, usually the person is not in what's called transient possession. They're not in that state of possession. So my job as an exorcist is to enter into the home, do the 7 steps, and what I'm doing is provoking the entity to manifest itself, and then you can perform the exorcism. And so, but there are things that I do that no one has any clue, but the possessed will know. And therefore, usually by the 4th or 5th step, the person is in transient possession.
What are the stages to possession, Bishop?
Well, infestation, oppression, possession. So infestation is the first stage, and that usually occurs by, again, performing black magic, black witchcraft, santeria, curses, etc., or opening yourselves up by receiving something that unfortunately you shouldn't have, attachment, whatever that might have been, obviously an evil entity. And then infestation, you're seeing things, you're hearing things are knocking. The dogs are usually very spooked, they're usually very afraid. And then, of course, it goes into the state of oppression. Now, a state of oppression, again, there are levels of oppression. Again, you have sexual, you have physical, you have psychological. at that level of a stage of oppression, it's very crucial to get help, because you're dealing with your intellect and will. In other words, it forces you to believe that you are schizophrenic. It forces you to believe that there's something wrong with you, and you begin to isolate yourself. And it continues to attack you to the point where you've doubted yourself to the level of you absolutely know that there's something wrong with you. Then it begins to tear down your will. So it continues to attack you, again, on a spiritual, psychological, on a sexual level, to the point where you say, I give up. I can't fight anymore. And that's when you have possession.
What's the difference between a demonologist and an exorcist?
Great question. A demonologist is one who studies demonology. But it needs to be understood that a demonologist, again, is a calling. That is a ministry. And if one is not called to serve in that type of ministry, they should really stay away from it. A demonologist is not the same thing as an exorcist. Those are completely two different things. An exorcist is the one who performs the solemn ritual of exorcism. Now, the demonologist does not. For example, my good friend John Zaffis. John is not an exorcist. John is a demonologist, and he's never performed an exorcism. He would never perform an exorcism because he's not an exorcist. An exorcist is one who is ordained, who is properly trained, who knows the law, who knows what the ramifications of performing the exorcism, and then, of course, performs one if there's one that's required. Of course, with the bishop's approval. So, big difference between an exorcist and a demonologist.
What do you take with you when you go to do an exorcism? Do you bring holy water? Do you bring crucifixes, prayer books? What would you bring?
I certainly bring the holy water. I have a rosary that was given to me by my mentor. I always bring that. I also bring the Eucharist. Now, it's very important that the Eucharist, you have to be very cautious. I celebrate the liturgy after, of course, an exorcism, or even a blessing on a home. That way, it's a cleansing of the home. It's important, however, that during the solemn ritual of exorcism, that the Eucharist is not used as a tool, because obviously the demonic will desecrate the Eucharist. So for Catholics, especially for old Catholics and Roman Catholics as well, the Eucharist is the true presence of Christ, and so we don't put obviously the Eucharist in a situation where it could be desecrated. But there's also, of course, we have incense, and there are other things that I use as well that as an exorcist we can't really get into a whole lot of stuff, but sacred chrism among other things.
Why does holy water work during an exorcism? Isn't holy water just water blessed?
Sure, it's invoking the Holy Spirit, obviously. If you think about this, if you think about an evil or a negative energy, obviously coming in contact with a positive energy. And that's why I tell people all the time to be careful about spraying holy water on perhaps maybe a case or a home that might be demonically infested. Because the problem is you're going to get a reaction. Positive and negative, you're going to get a reaction. For example, there was a case in which a paranormal group claimed to have an exorcist on their team, and the wife said that her husband was going in and out of transient possession. And they told her to put a Bible as well as holy water under his bed. Well, that's the worst thing you can do, because those things are actually going to provoke the entity to manifest itself. The person is going to go into possession. And that, in fact, that's exactly what did happen. And I was called out in that case, and we got involved. But any type of holy object, it doesn't necessarily have to be holy water. Any type of holy object that comes in contact with an unholy entity, it's going to be a reaction. And again, I think I need to stress that I am one of the most open-minded people that you will see and you'll ever meet, because again, I have friends who are Wiccans and pagans, and many of those folks have objects as well that they consider very holy, and I respect that. And so a holy object that you have faith in that combats evil is what you use.
Bishop, what are your thoughts about people who just want to get into this for the sake of something to do? You know, why is there the fascination with some people in today's society to want to challenge the demons?
You know, Rob, I tell you, that's the $1 million question that I ask myself when I find out that groups are going to cases in which they have no business going into. I don't know if it's because, and I don't want to blame it on the media, because the media gets such a bad rep. The media is entertainment, but I
exactly.
think I think people, it is this, I guess, the mystique of it, and I don't know why. That's why I'm out there telling people that unless they're called to this, they really should stay away. Because honestly, Rob, the state of oppression that a demonologist and most certainly an exorcist live through on a daily basis is overwhelming. And that's my message for people. That I always tell people, never act with a doubtful conscience. You may allow an evil to occur. It means simple this. If you're a paranormal group and you believe that there's a demonic case, someone says there's a demonic in my home, I need help. If you go into that case and you're going in and you think, you know what, this could be real, well, then don't go in. Because if you do, you can allow an evil to occur, which is demonic, could attack you or could increase and hurt the family.
Bishop, please stand by. We have to take our final break. Exo Nation, Bishop James Long is our special guest. His website is www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com. The good Bishop and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the Exxon continues live and around the world from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, right here on the Talk Star Radio Network. Once again, for more information on Bishop Jeffrey Long, his website is www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com.
19 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Bishop Long is our special guest, www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com. Bishop, how can someone tell if a loved one of theirs is possessed?
Of course, there's, and that's a great question. And one thing that needs to be understood is that a lot of these things that you can see can actually be other issues as well. Mm-hmm. But of course, when a person's personality completely changes, when they become violently ill or act out in an abusive way, when religious prayers are cited, when religious objects are brought forth to them, of course, they will again go into transient possession. There are things where catatonic state. Well, I don't want to get into a whole lot of state here, a whole lot of information, but there are signs that a person will do. Like, for example, a person who's possessed will look as if they're in a catatonic state, but that could also be a neurological issue. Mm-hmm. And so there are things you continue to do to determine whether or not, obviously, if you're dealing with a person who's under possession. But the person becomes isolated. The person has wanting nothing to do with you. The person. There are many times in which the person will lose their bowels. because again, that's destroying the intellect and will, and it's important to remember the demonic will manipulate the body, the muscles, etc., and anything that it can do to obviously cause stress upon the body, upon a person, then it will do it. And so there's a variety of things that a person will do to make the alarm. I mean, if your loved one is obviously becoming isolated, with nothing to do with the family, is becoming, sick into the stomach, or become violent during religious prayers, obviously that could be an issue.
What special projects are you working on now, Bishop?
Gosh, we are so busy with blessing homes and talking to people on a spiritual level and just helping people. We never charge for our services. This is something that I'll never, ever charge, ever, for an exorcism, certainly an exorcism, or even a blessing, and I can't. The moment that I begin to charge is the moment that my pride can get in the way, and then my intentions become unpure, because I look at it as a value, as a dollar, instead of actually helping the person who's truly needing help. And so I'm so busy. I'm just swamped with helping so many people who just need blessings and just, I guess, counseling, spiritual counseling. There's a lot of other things that we're looking at. Of course, I'm looking into writing another book. I've had so many people ask me, can you please write about the cases? And obviously, I was debating on it, but I think I will. But obviously, we're going to be very generic as far as the names, certainly, for respect of the victims. But I think for the people to actually see what an exorcist endures and the cases that he or she may endure, I think people should be aware of it, and I think I should educate people. So there's a book that, Through the Eyes of an Exorcist 2, Case Files. I'm looking into starting that.
Bishop, we have to say so long for tonight, but I do want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great hour. And continued success to you, and may you go with God and go with peace.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it for the invite.
Take care, Bishop. Bishop James Long has been our guest this hour. www.paranormalclergy.com. That's www.paranormalclergy.com. When I come back from the news at the top of the hour at 6.5 minutes past, J. Allen Danilek joins me. We're going to be talking about UFOs and aliens right here on Talkstar. Don't go away.